ahead
This conference will now be recorded.
So the meeting is called to order at about 2:01, and let's start with introductions. Diane, can you kick us off?
Diane Heinz.
Okay.
That's it.
And you're a committee member.
Oh, yes, I'm a committee member. Yes. Sorry.
That's fine. And I see Philip.
Hi, good morning. It's Philip Johnson, Camp Riley at Training Site Manager, State of Oregon.
Thank you for joining us. I'm very limited on my spaces here, so let me go back here. I see Chris.
Yeah, I'm Chris Farrar, serve as one of the planning commissioners on the County Planning Commission, and I just attend these CAC meetings randomly to see how well the process is going and sometimes make public comments.
Thank you so much for joining us, Chris. And I see Randy.
Yeah, Randy says he can't hear anything. He's checking his computer, but Philip, I don't remember his exact title, but he's affiliated with Camp Riley, correct?
He's actually affiliated. Yeah, he's affiliate. Man, I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment today on speaking. He's actually part of the Oregon Military Department, the Adjutant General's Installation Division, which I fall under also. But if you think about it, I'm down here and he works up in the headquarters in Salem. So if you look at it from that perspective, he works with Mr. Todd Farmer and Stan Hutchison, our director for the Adjutant General's installation. So this allows him, not speaking for you, Randy, hopefully you could join us here soon, but it gives Salem a perspective on what's going on also with respect to our committee and what's happening in the community. I hope that helps.
Wonderful, thank you. And here's Maria. We're doing introductions. So just introduce yourself and who you are. You're muted. Can't hear you.
There we go. There we go. Sorry, it took me a second. Hi, I'm Maria Pinsetich. I am a member of the Clatsop Plains CAC and a property owner on South Wahana, adjacent and abutting to my dear friend cousin, Mary Kimmis.
Okay, Gail, that is all I can see on my iPad. Is there anybody I've missed?
Yeah, so we have a person named Patrick, no last name. And if Patrick would like to say something.
Patrick, if you're talking, you are muted and we can't hear you.
Hi, my name is Patrick. I'm just a property owner in the Clatsop Plains and just interested in what's going on.
Thank you so much for joining us, Patrick. Okay, if there are no further introductions, we'll go ahead and start with reviewing the meeting summary. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to do that. And opening it up right now for comments, corrections, additions, deletions. Hopefully you're not muted because I'm not hearing any. Hearing none, we will go ahead and go on to, well, I'm including the public comment and input. So public, you are welcome if you've read the meeting summary or otherwise perused it, you are welcome to comment or add any input now. Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and move on. Oh wait, no, I have something. I don't see Dawn here or Devin. Is that correct, Gail?
Correct. Yeah, neither one is here right now.
Okay, I wanted to follow up with Dawn on the Chinook Cultural Committee regarding access points and trails. I don't want to let that drop off. And then also I don't know, Maria, if you've had any time to work on proposed language for coastal shorelands and other shorelands, policy 4.
I'm working on it. I'm not ready to share it yet.
And that question was for Maria.
Yes. Did you hear? Uh-oh. Did you hear me?
Just don't leave it off. I did have one correction. Yes, I did. Thank you. I did have one correction. It's just a typo, and that is under review of goal 5, line number 31. It says those trees are the Sitka spruce, red cedar, yellow, and then there's a comma cedar, and that comma needs to come out. Otherwise, we're looking for a yellow something, but we're not sure what. So just for clarification.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that's all that I have on the meeting summary.
Okay, and Mary, your mic is kind of breaking up. You're going
So moving on to, yes. Is this better? I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know how to fix it, so I'm hoping it'll be okay in the future as we move forward. So if you need to have me repeat anything, please do so. So moving on our agenda, maybe I'm moving around too much. On our agenda, review of goal 5 topics, energy sources. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at that. I did have a little question about under the Clatsop County Goal 5 resource inventory. There's nothing listed here in this document. It says refer to Goal 13 energy conservation. So I'm assuming that we're going to cover that when we get to Goal 13. Is that correct, Gail?
Actually, today's agenda includes Goal 13, and so in your agenda package, there was a background report for Goal 13, and in there it does talk about the inventory. Let me see where I've put it. Yeah, here from the 1980 plan. So it's page 29 in the agenda package. And so it gives you a breakdown of what they identified as their energy sources back in 1980, including hydroelectric supplied by Bonneville Power Administration, natural gas supplied by Northwest Natural, how oil products are delivered to the area, same with coal. Interestingly, wood was one of their most exciting energy sources, and they actually predicted that in the future, 1/3 to 1/2 of the future population of the county would rely on wood as an energy source. They also addressed nuclear power, and apparently back in 1975, there was a site identified out in the Brownsmead area in a landslide area, and for a possible nuclear power plant. And as we know at this point, nothing has ever come of that. And I don't know which site in particular they had identified. There was no additional information that I could find. They talked about solar power and predicted that by 2000, we would see large-scale solar farms here in the county. That's not come to pass at this point, but I think there's a trend to incorporate more solar installations in the county. Probably not on the scale envisioned here, or like you would see further east in the state, but we do get inquiries about it. Wind generation was also looked at, and they identified in 1983 in an update 6 sites that were potential sites for wind generation facilities. And that included out by Fort Stevens and the Clatsop Spit, in the jetty area, a couple at the airport, and then one out off of Highway 30 off of Wickiup Ridge. And none of those have really come to pass at this point, although we do have a test tower going up on Nikolai Ridge out off of Highway 30 on the heading east. They also looked at biomass, and then they also considered tide and wave energy, and basically concluded that at this point, or at that point I should say, back in the early 1980s, that while it might be viable for small islands to use tide and wave energy, that basically wouldn't be productive here on the mainland. So there was a inventory included.
Okay. You're right, I did see that, but thank you for pointing it out. So at this point, does anybody identify any energy sources missing that should be added to the inventory? Should any be removed?
Well, I don't think wood is probably, I mean, I think what we know about wood since 1980 is that it's a large contributor to air quality problems. So, and there were a couple of times when they referred to slash, and I wasn't sure if they were referring to burning slash for energy or just that's something you do with wood. Anyway, I don't know that wood as a foundational energy source is that good of an idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I had a question, not on this question that you're dealing with right now, but on the first page of the energy sources, at the bottom of the page, it says planning. There are 3 guidelines for planning, and it says planning guideline 3, 2, and 3. And I'm wondering if that's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, or if that guideline 3 is a 3 from some different goal. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, so the way the statewide planning goal is broken up, it starts out by stating what the goal is, and then underneath it they give you guidelines to implement the plan or implement the goal, achieve the
Okay.
goal. So it's
Okay.
broken out into 2 parts. There's planning guidelines for when you're just generally looking and thinking about how this is going to function in the future. And so that's guideline 3 under the planning portion of it. And then the second part is how do you actually implement it? And
okay.
So those, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
sorry for interrupting that conversation about whether or not these things need to stay or go.
No, I always appreciate clarification, so that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So moving on to the tables. I have a couple things that I wanted to comment on, but I'm opening it up to the committee right now for your input. While hearing nothing but crickets, I will move on to Goal 5, Policy 1. And so, yeah, look at that. Gail's always on top of things. Thanks so much, Gail. I hope, is Julia here today? Okay, just curious. Don't want to leave her out. So I was just kind of curious why we want to retain the Astoria Weather Bureau when we don't know where it is. Is that perhaps something we want to remove?
Are you, well, for staff, we left it in there just because, yeah, we didn't know where it was. We know that there are some NOAA facilities here in the area, but nothing obviously that's generating wind for energy. But we didn't see the harm in leaving it in.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. And then on Policy 2, county shall rely on state and federal. So I'd like to open this up a little bit to discussion in terms of how comfortable we are if we want to retain this policy or if you think it's necessary. Any thoughts on this?
I'm sorry, Mary, could we just back
It says
up
that
one
we
second?
rely on state and federal permitting processes. Sure.
Can we back up 1 second to policy 1? Because
Go ahead, Diane.
all of those
Yes.
policies particulars are not currently viable. They're not, none of them are being used and none of them are viable. And so I'm wondering if the county has any identification of sites that would be possible wind generation sites, since none of those are gonna, I mean, we're gonna retain that policy, but have we identified any sites that would be possible?
Yeah, the county staff has not done any research or identified any sites. At this point, it seems to be market driven. And as I mentioned, we recently, back in October of last year, had a test tower approved for Nikolai Ridge, and they'll be under construction shortly with that and probably operate it for about a year to determine if it's going to be feasible to do any sort of wind generation facility up on Nikolai Ridge.
And that's the only wind facility that's being considered at this time?
Yep.
Yeah. And is there any interest in looking at other possible sites for wind generation? Because none of the sites that were identified, none of those 6 identified sites seem viable.
Yeah, we have not had any additional inquiries other than this one up on Nikolai Ridge.
Okay.
And keep in mind too, when we get to goal 19, which is the offshore territorial waters, that's where you would be likely to encounter some of these offshore wind turbine facilities. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I have a quick question about what's to be included in the energy sources policies. Is this thought to be just for kind of commercial operations, or would it include homeowner systems that would produce energy just to be consumed locally by a property owner? Because there's a number of small wind generators that can be used by people effectively, and I think there are probably a few active in the county, and also solar, the same thing. And then when you get into hydro, it'll be the same deal. So are they big or small?
Yeah, there was not any guidance provided in statewide planning goal 5. So I'm only basing my answer on what is already in our plan, which was really focused on big, wide scale energy production. But I don't see why it couldn't be addressed in goal 5, the smaller household type production facilities.
Okay. Okay, just to reiterate, so currently the policies are written for commercial developments and not homeowner. Any other comments on that? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on. Anything else anybody wants to bring up on table 1? Oh, I did have one thing on quite a few of them, Gail, and that is under staff recommendation, it says retail policy. And I know you meant retain, but since words can be important, I thought perhaps to avoid confusion in the future, that they don't think that we're implementing retail policy.
Yeah, I thought I had picked up all of those, but apparently I missed a few.
That's okay. I just, words are important. So,
Mary?
yes.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Yes.
I accidentally unmuted myself, and then I've been, it goes to the last comment, and I'd like to bring it up now because it applies to most of the comments that I have, and that it's in regards to the non-commercial buildings. So encouragement of more sustainable practices in terms of building and energy efficiency. Are we considering that in part of this, or is this really more just for government buildings? You know, LEED type of construction, and you know, using placement for improved solar efficiency, things like that. Is it only, is it exclusive of residential and types of construction?
So Maria, as goal 13, which is energy conservation, does look at both government buildings and also individual homes and subdivisions and residential dwellings. And those policies are included in our table and table 1 here.
Mm-hmm.
See, where it talks about orientation. And
Right.
remember, 40 years ago, there wasn't any LEED. So,
Yeah.
but it talks about orientation of buildings. It talks about the use of solar panels and solar easements on private properties and houses, and orientation of streets, orientations of lots, and things like that. So they do cover some of it in goal 13. I think the difference between what we probably know now and what we knew 40 years ago is vast. And so there's probably a lot of things that we can add to it when we get to our new policies table.
Okay, that's okay. That answers my question then. So would that be, I guess I want to also leave the door open for stuff we don't even know now, much like 40 years ago, it tried to do the same thing. So I'm not certain how to manage that. So thanks.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how well we can manage that, because even if we were to put language in that says every new house shall incorporate this technology plus any new technology that comes along in the future, but what if it's a technology that maybe we don't really want? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Right.
we just don't know. But
No,
you can always amend this plan. We don't have to wait 40 years. If we take one message from this process, it's that we don't have to wait 40 years to touch the plan again.
No, totally. I guess the other piece was that that I took away from after reading this was that a lot of this may be done at the county level, where there's a consideration of you know, the orientation of the house or whatever, that may not be as public facing, for lack of a better word, or as obvious to someone who is new to the process. So I guess that's the other piece. Okay, thank you.
Good comments. Anything else on goal 5 or 13? Boy, we're just scooting right along. So moving on to table 3, new issues and policies worksheet. Any comments?
Actually, Mary, if we could go back to table 2, there is one policy in the community, the Clatsop Plains community plan, related to energy conservation.
Yes. So I guess my only question is why semi-rural is highlighted?
So last month, at the end of the meeting, Robert had brought up this discussion of semi-rural versus hemi-rural and demi-rural, and did that mean we were a slurb and just a Warrenton redheaded stepchild? So I had highlighted it from last month, just in case you all wanted to continue that discussion.
He's not here. Let's move on.
So moving on to table 3, new issues and policies worksheet. Any comments? I did have one. and that is on staff recommendation. I'd like to add where it says bus stops, walking paths, and/or bicycle/horse paths. Or if we want to be official, you can say equine, but horse works. It's more identifiable for most people.
No
Okay,
objection here.
added that in there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Any other comments? So those of you not on the committee, public, feel free to chime in. This is your opportunity.
Yeah, and this is a good opportunity, Maria, if we want to start identifying some of those items like the lead.
Right. I'll be honest with you. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I keep muting myself. I was just starting to dig into that and kind of new technologies in terms of even, I mean, little things, windows, anything to make a house more, not air, I want to say airtight, I think. I'm not certain. It's the heat loss, and there's just a whole thing. So I dug into it a little bit, but I'm not very articulate on it.
So could we say something along the lines of encourage or new development to incorporate the newest energy efficiency standards? Something along those lines. Rather than specifying what they are, just leave it open-ended, because like you said, we don't know about lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that something akin to that. Because I think fairly open-ended, and kind of encouraging people to and again, I know that we don't get to talk about tax breaks or anything like that, which might be an incentive to creating a more energy efficient home. But yeah, something that articulates. Again, I feel fairly inarticulate on how to describe it. That the building is efficient and economical, and ensures, that it takes advantage of existing resources like sun exposure and orientation and things like that.
One thing you could think of, this is about energy sources and energy conservation. So what people talk about, one source of energy is conservation, is coming up with ways of actually using less energy, so the existing supply goes farther. So you could have an element in there of that nature that promotes the highest efficiencies just across the board, that creates better use of the existing energy supply, and that diminishes the need to expand energy sources, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, conservation.
Well said.
Yeah.
Welcome, Robert. Good to see you. You're muted and I cannot hear you.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome. Yes. We've gone through this very quickly. Do you have any items that you wanted to bring up? We're already on to table 3.
You are just so fast and efficient. No. And hi, teacher. Oh.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that we could be discussing, Gail?
Well, I'm sure there is. So let's backtrack a moment and go back to the energy inventory, the source inventory that
Right.
was in the 1980 plan.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that nobody even blinked an eye at nuclear power. Is that something that we want to discuss?
We should discuss taking it off the list. I have it X'd out on my paper. But, yeah, it's not going to happen here, so why are we even looking at it?
Did we tear down Rainier?
So I think that's a great idea, Diane. Is that part of what we can do is recommend removing nuclear power from the energy conservation resources inventory?
Yes, we can.
Is that the will of the committee?
I vote
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, then let's go ahead. Our recommendation is to delete nuclear power. What about biomass?
I'm not extremely familiar with biomass, and perhaps somebody on the committee knows more, one of the public that's listening. My general understanding of it is you're taking waste products like slash from forest harvest and using that to create energy. Usually, I guess it's steam energy, which then can be used to power electrical sources and things like that. You've exhausted my knowledge of biomass.
My sense as a tool of the system, having attended community leaders gatherings at Hampton Lumber, was that even though they have the capability, it was their determination was that it was not currently economical. In other words, they have a lot of waste, they have the boilers, they do use it for their own purposes, but that as far as creating and redistributing and selling the energy, from their perspective, even though they're in a prime set of circumstances, they have rejected it. In other words, they use it for their own purposes to power the Hampton Mill at Hammond or Warrenton, wherever the hell it is. But they have deemed it ineffective, inefficient.
But I don't know that we should remove it from the list of possible into the future sources of energy to consider as a possible resource, because it takes care of waste as well as providing energy, even though right now we don't have the technology to look at it efficiently. I mean, I'm not sure that Warrenton is the last word on how to use biomass. I think a lot of European municipalities are effectively and cleanly disposing of their waste through biomass technologies. So I just don't know that we need to dump it before the technology is fully investigated. It's my personal
When you speak of biomass, Diane, do you have in mind milk jugs and stuff like that? You know, the stuff that usually gets piled up to be shipped to China, or are you thinking mostly of forest waste?
I'm thinking of the waste that's sort of defined here, loosely defined here as slag from, forest management, but not just forest management. I just think biomass has a potential to solve a couple of problems, and that one of them is that China won't take our garbage anymore. So we could think of something more useful to do with the enormous amount of waste generated in this.
Have we talked about wave generated energy?
Yeah.
So hold on, Robert. Let's finish up with biomass.
Okay.
And then we can move on to wave, because I agree with Diane that should stay on the list. What I would recommend is that we delete where it says biomass, the last line, within the next 20 years. I don't think we need a time frame on that
I
anymore.
agree. Yeah,
But
I just don't think we should dump it all together, but I
do like that last sentence. As some barriers are removed, it can be expected that full utilization of the energy available through biomass could be accomplished. So yeah, I think that's something for the future and very viable for this county, because we do produce a fair amount of biomass with our
agricultural, forest, and just human.
Yeah.
Dump waste.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments about that. One is I agree, keep biomass in. There's many municipalities and counties that use landfills to generate methane gas, and I know
Right.
methane has its issues too, but it's a way of reducing overall amount of waste, breakdown time, and putting it to some useful purpose. So I'd keep it in on that ground, but on the forest, I don't know a lot about it, but it was talked about on one of the forestry tours, I believe, that it's possible that some of that slash could be converted through some process to what they call biochar, and that can
Right.
be burned in
Cleanly.
a way that doesn't produce as much carbon dioxide, and that there's, I don't, like I say, I don't have the details on it, but the persons in favor of this suggested that it would overall be a reduction of global warming gases to the atmosphere. And so you might want to put in that something about the wood char process. OSU has investigated this, and there are papers out on the production of that stuff.
Any comments on adding something about wood char under biomass?
No?
I think that is great information, Chris. Appreciate so much you bringing that up. Does the term biomass, do you know, Gail, does the term biomass, would that include the char process? Is that
Yeah.
another?
I don't know, Mary.
I think it would. I'd just leave it general like you have. I'm just trying to say that there's a number of different reasons probably to keep biomass in the possible useful category.
Wonderful, thank you. So, Robert, you wanted to talk about wave energy.
Just because it has always seemed to be one of those issues that seem to have more of a presence than wind turbines. You know, that it's, I haven't heard of the technology in 5-10 years, but I thought it was heavily studied for a while and certainly seemed clean. I know it may have irritated any fishers who didn't want anything to be interfering with their fishing grounds in between the jetty and Cape Falcon. But I don't recall any other basic objections to getting energy from wave technology.
It's
So what-
on the 1980 list, and I don't see any reason to take it off. But we just need the technology to catch up. But
I would agree.
it's already there on the list, on the inventory.
It was better than tidal, even though obviously we have wonderful tidal power from the Columbia River flushing in and out.
Yeah.
Does that show up anywhere?
Say again, Robert, I missed the last part.
I'm sorry, I'm ill prepared. Just the huge amount of ebb and flow of the Columbia River seems to be such a massive amount of constant energy, except it's slack tide, that I haven't heard any commentary or any thoughts about, I haven't heard anything in years about making use of the ebb and tide of the Columbia River flow. But it's obviously a massive amount of energy.
Agreed. I don't think the technology is there yet, and that's why it sort of died out.
It seemed like hard to avoid. It's like, just a giant mill wheel, like ancient technology of having something that turns when the water goes, and it can turn either direction. It seems like such thousands of year old technology that we're talking about, something that turns a water wheel.
So what I'm hearing you say is we want to leave tides and waves as part of our energy, our resource inventory. And I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
And really, it's two separate items. The tides, the waves off the coast, and the constant ebb and flow of the Columbia River, as far as turning a giant turbine.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Don. Welcome.
Yeah, I've been listening and doing all kinds of things. I heard Robert talking about the waves and tidal and that. The Clatsop Spit, was that addressed?
What did you want to say about it?
That the Chinook Nation would not support any kind of development of the Clatsop Spit.
So your recommendation is to remove that under the resource inventory under wind. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The Clatsop Spit is a diverse area for the propagation of shoreline fish like the red-tailed perch and some other commercial fish that utilize that area for spawning purposes. When they go into that lagoon area that's just upriver, Trestle Bay, and then also it is a resource for propagating Dungeness crab. So we would not like to have those valuable renewable resources, food resources, altered or damaged in any way by putting things on the spit. And it is also a navigational problem, ongoing. In other words, vessels continually on an annual basis of different sizes end up on the spit, and that therein causes problems for petroleum pollution and other pollution. So anything more than what's going on there now would be totally unacceptable to Chinook.
Thank you for your input.
Just want to be on record on that.
Thank you. So my understanding, Diane, when you talked about this earlier, that the 6 sites identified are not really viable anymore. Was I correct in what I heard? Diane, could you hear?
Sorry, I don't see any of those sites. They're already identified to have limited or low development. I don't see that any of them is going to be developed, given the political, cultural, there's just no will to do that. So that was my question, was bag those, and then the the one identified, not Wikia, but whichever one gave us.
Nikolai.
Yeah, that could, you know, still continue to be a possibility, but the rest of those, I don't see any potential. So if wind generating facility is something we want to embrace, then we should be looking at alternatives to the sites that were identified originally in this 1980 report or 83 report.
So,
It's currently being
what,
tested,
hold
right?
on. Hold on. So what I'm hearing is that the proposal is that we strike, remove the sites identified, replace that with Nikolai Ridge. I think that's what it was called.
And then continue to, because it's windy here, it could be a possible resource, continue to, you know, look in the county for other possibilities. But none of these, or at least 1 through 3 and 6, aren't probably going to ever produce anything. So get them off the, you know, just get them out of our plan and put something in that might be a viable. Oh, that's so pretty. What was that? Wait, I want to go back.
It's Bhutan.
No,
Yeah.
it's.
So thank you, Gail. That was great wording. Robert, you had something to say. Please go on.
Oh, I think it's already been said that
Okay.
they're in East County. They're currently testing for when, you know,
Okay.
putting up a tower. But I guess is that considered Nikolai, or where is that, Gail?
Yes, that's Nikolai Ridge.
Yep.
So that is the recommendation, unless I hear otherwise, of the committee, that we strike, remove the 6 identified sites and add Nikolai Ridge and other possible sites. I think you worded it really well, Gail.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mary?
Yes.
Does that include removing Youngs River Falls?
Youngs River Falls would fall under hydro.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Is there anything else that we want to talk about on wind? And then we could move to hydroelectric.
Well, I want to ask a question about wind, and then we need to put solar on the list. But why would there not be turbines potentially out on the Clatsop Plains?
Well, that would be another possible site. It's not currently listed.
I would, if the only compromise I see is putting the turbines on Clatsop Ridge high up above to catch all the wind in that timber area, and try and preserve as much of the plains as possible.
You know, just from my experience having put up a windmill here on the plains, it's incredibly powerful. You know, so it certainly it's just a very powerful force. You know, I forget what the diameter of my windmill was, but it was powerful enough that it killed itself.
My understanding, Robert, in looking into wind power for myself, is that it certainly seems like it'd be a viable thing for this area, but particularly in my property and perhaps on yours, our issue is that we get these strong gusts, and that's what blows the windmills up. And so we may not be, we seem like we would be a great place for wind generation, but at this time, the technology is not there to handle our 80-mile-per-hour gusts that come up in the middle of our wind generation.
And that's just what happened to mine. Is the tail swung around and caught the blades and shredded it.
Yeah. But I do think that we need to keep wind on the inventory list. Any objections? Okay, then moving on to hydroelectric. And Don brought up about the Youngs River Falls. And I know that I read something about that in here, but can somebody direct me to that or knows where that is?
Yeah, it's back on table 1, and it was goal 5, policy 4. And the goal or the policy says, if and when the city of Astoria intends on constructing a hydroelectric facility at the Youngs River Falls site, Clatsop County shall, in cooperation with the city of Astoria, apply the goal 5 administrative role. And we actually contacted, well, we didn't, one of our countywide advisory committee members contacted Nathan Crater, who's the city engineer for Astoria. And his response was basically that while years ago the city had this plan, it's not on the table as an option for them at this point. And the only reason that they would reconsider it would be if there were some sort of regional problem that needed some sort of a regional solution. But at this point, they're retaining the water rights, but they are not moving forward with this project. And then you may remember back, it's been several months now, we had a discussion about something I can't remember, the low head hydro facilities that are the 2 to 3 feet little dams in the streams. And I know that Mr. Abing had stated that the Clatsop Chinook at that point would be opposed to that completely. So.
Which also makes sense to Robert.
So any other comments on this?
Yeah, just on the low hydro, it's a terrible impediment to any kind of migratory creature, be it an otter or a lamprey or whatever.
So am I hearing some support for removing hydroelectric as one of our energy resource inventory identifications?
I guess my narrow thought has been regarding low head hydro. You can't even imagine where we'd want to put a real live big dam.
Mm-hmm.
Our concern would on the Youngs River, we would like, or the falls, we would like that removed entirely, simply because like all the falls, there aren't that many in Clatsop County that were utilized. They were utilized historically and culturally by the Chinook people to harvest their fish, our fish, and to destroy them or inundate them permanently would be akin to what happened at Celilo Falls. And we don't want that to happen to our hearts ever again.
I'm thinking at Youngs River, there'd be no intention of inundating that, but it would be making use of the drop, with penstock or whatever it's called, as the water flows from above the falls down to the level where the salmon were captured. No salmon leap the falls, and yes, it is an important gathering point that needs to be protected. But I can't imagine anyone is talking about damming up Youngs River and inundating the falls like happened at Celilo.
Any other comments? I would like to go ahead and leave hydroelectric in the inventory list, just to leave things open for the future. I'm not particularly in support of hydroelectric for a variety of environmental reasons. However, I do think that we don't know the future, and I think that we should keep it on the inventory. Comments?
It seems like hydroelectric would also include any kind of a turbine or series of turbines utilizing the flow of the Columbia River. That's certainly hydroelectric. And, you know, and I don't know if that's somehow differentiated.
It is, Robert, because I would think that that type of hydroelectric generation would fall under tides and waves. Am I correct in that, Gail?
That's a semantic difference that I don't have enough technical knowledge to make that call.
I think that's different than the tides and waves. The tide would be just that. It would, and there is a maximum distance upstream that the tide actually is active over, whereas the flow of the Columbia is all the way from the, well, even between all the dams. So it's different. And those in stream turbines would be, I think, a totally different kind of engineering concept to generate energy from. But along with those ones that Robert's talking in the natural, another hydroelectric thing that's minimally used around the county already by City of Astoria anyway is in water main hydro. So where you have your water catchment up in the higher parts of the mountains, and then you're piping it down to a city to use the water. They've installed turbines in those pipes, and they generate a little bit of electricity. It helps cover the cost of their water system. So leaving hydro in makes a lot of sense because it includes so many different possibilities, and some of them are really not very environmentally harmful, such as those in-pipe sorts of systems.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Don. I'd forgotten about that. Yes, in-pipe hydroelectric generation is definitely an option for the future, and we would definitely want to leave that in. Any other comments? I would like to add some wording in there, perhaps, about just to keep this in the front of people's minds about in-pipe generation, because it's something that gets forgotten as counties and cities are supplying water, and this needs to be done when the pipes are put in, or that's when it's most economically feasible. So I would like something about, if we can add some wording there about in-pipe electrical generation. Any other comments?
The Yakima Nation now faces a difficult situation. They're using, or the push now is to, on some of their, actually a good portion of their culturally sensitive land, to install pump stations, that being two lakes, one high, one low, and then pumping water from the low lake dam to the up lake dam, and then letting the water run through electrical generating systems, and this continuing cycle. There was talk about in the future having something like this on Beneke Creek, which would inundate several thousand acres of forested area, and then and having a pumping station to regenerate electricity.
So forgive my ignorance, Don, where is Beneke Creek?
I believe it's still in Clatsop County, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe it is.
I think it's out by the Jewel area.
I think, yeah, this would be an issue probably for the LC Vine Maple Jewel area.
Well, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, there actually, I believe it was goal 13 of the comprehensive plan. There was a plan for a facility just like that along Buster Creek, which is also out by Highway 103 Jewel area. Rotate right. And they had an upper reservoir and a lower reservoir, and then they had some sort of pumping facility in there, and they were going to be working off the Nehalem, I guess.
Well, it sounds like in terms of what we're discussing here, the inventory, that we would want to keep all of the items listed, except for nuclear power, removing that, and under wind, removing the identified sites and adding Nikolai Ridge and other possible sites. Further discussion.
Does Camp Rylea want to be a potential wind turbine site?
I'm trying to hear what did you say wind site, ma'am? I missed that last part.
Yes, or solar, or solar.
Well, with under 2,000 acres, I'll definitely, I'll bring that up, but it's pretty limited space, but the answer is never no. We got to look and see what we could, if we can contribute in some way, shape or form, no matter how small, I think it's definitely worth us looking into with the military, with the Oregon Military Department.
Camp Rylea has a reputation of having either succeeded or striving for a zero net energy, as I recall. I don't know if it's currently there.
Can I add something?
Thank you.
Can I add something to Camp Rylea?
Yes.
When I was employed with the Clatsop County Sheriff's Department, we were privileged to use, upon agreement with the Oregon Guard, to use the constructed city, vacant, fake news city that's inside Camp Rylea for training purposes. And we discussed, I said, you know, if you put solar panels on every building that's there, it would probably generate enough electricity that they could sell it to Warrington. Just a thought that there's a lot of wasted space that could certainly use those panels and generate power.
So I can address, that's a great comment, but the mount site or the military operations on urban terrain. So there are other facilities here that we can look into, and I'll capture that along with the wind piece. But the comment you made, and thank you for training here as part of the local law enforcement and community engagements. But those facilities, so you'll have, whether it's soldiers or police officers, local law enforcement, interagencies, they will enter through the top of the buildings when they conduct training. So that would be somewhat problematic to have the panels on there. But there are other buildings, approximately 165 on this facility, ranging from very small to larger facilities. So I've got that as note number 2. That's a great comment on, hey, how can we use space out here if we can't use the training areas or limited training areas? How can we be part of the solution for Clatsop County?
The Indian Scout thanks you.
The former U.S. Army Ranger thanks you too.
So, any other comments?
So Mary, can we go back to Chris's question about private household energy generating facilities?
Yes.
And
yes.
should we put a policy in there, or policies, or have a discussion at least about that and what we would want to protect or promote?
Yes. I would like to see a policy. I thought that we already said something about this, encouraging energy efficient construction and new development. But that's not quite what you're talking about, is it?
Right. So I think if I understood Chris's question correctly, is that he was asking about, does goal 5 also address small household generating facilities? So if you had your windmill or something like that. And we don't really address it in goal 5, so this might be the time to think about it.
Another source that's getting more popular is heat pumps that use the amount of heat that's stored in the ground. And even though there's not really geothermal areas here in the county, the earth itself has a temperature that's generally warmer than the air, so that you can always design a system just like a reverse of a refrigerator to draw heat out. And so these heat pumps are very efficient and are a good option for people. They're expensive, but over the long haul, they pay in reduced electricity costs. So that's just one example. And most of those are either done for an individual home or for maybe some commercial space, in some cases, a larger facility, but not a regional system to distribute it. So it'd be more property by property. And then, of course,
Chris, do you know about roughly how deep you have to go to gain the differential, the temperature differential?
Hardly anything, just a couple of few feet. You just need to get down in the earth to, the deeper is the better. But no, these home systems, I don't really know exactly, but they're within the upper probably meter or so of the ground system, just coils of some kind of heat absorbing fluid in a tube.
So then do we want to put some language in the policy about encouraging, I guess, private use of energy generating technologies such as geothermal heat pumps, solar panels, wind energy, and what about hydro? Whoa, I'm hearing a lot of silence.
Sure.
Well, I like the idea of keeping it general and making it some suggested types that people would commonly get a better idea what we're talking about here. As to hydro, I don't think I want to get involved in that discussion right now.
Go ahead.
That would be hydro would be a sensitive topic for Chinook, extremely, considering all that's happened.
I just wanted to get the conversation started here. So Robert, I think you had something to say.
I can always find something to say, dear. The hydro, just the fact that the water table, even from, say, Sunset Lake out here to the Skipanon, is enough of a drop that I'm sure that Chris could come up with some way to utilize that height differential. We don't think of it as a dam system, but the dunes themselves are in fact, they function as swales, they function as dams, and I bet Chris could come up with a way to utilize that differential.
Can I have the rights to that energy? So
I'm hearing that we definitely do not want to include hydro in suggested uses, but we might want to add the term and other developing energy sources. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good, because I don't really want to revisit something sensitive that we discussed concerning groundwater, sustaining groundwater, and well waters. It's all interconnected out there on the plains. You draw from one place, it's going to affect some other place. So I don't like the thought of tapping any more into that.
Wonderful. I had to throw in that controversial word just to get you guys talking. So I did, and I'm glad. What do you think about adding that wording to the recommended, or our recommendation to add that wording to the policies? Yes, no? Raise a hand, smile. Okay, sounds good. Hearing nothing else. Did you get that, Gail? I'm having trouble reading that on my screen.
Yeah, so what I noted, the policy would be encourage the private use of energy generating technologies such as solar panels, wind energy, geothermal, heat pumps, and other developing energy sources in order to reduce transmission costs and pollution generated by the consumption of regionally produced and oriented energy sources.
You do have a way with words. Great job.
Thanks.
Okay. I know we've kind of jumped around. I think it takes us a while to warm up. I know it does me on our discussions. Any other items that you want to bring up? Any recommendations, Gail?
Other than, we haven't really touched on solar. Do you have any new recommendations for solar?
I did read the additional report that you sent out on solar regarding the example of a Maryland dairy farm. It has its pros, it has its cons. I don't know how I feel about covering large quantities of our land with a solar farm. So I'm interested to hear what you all have to say.
Yeah, so for those who might not have had a chance to read the article yet, it was basically an article that was forwarded to me by one of our advisory committee members in the Northeast planning area. And the article talked about the cost benefits to farmers who would put a portion of their farmland in use as a solar panel farm. In this case, the example they used was a 6-acre plot out of, I forget how many acres the farmer had. But the cost benefits, because you could then lease that land underneath the solar panels and around it to other farmers who might need grazing land, say for sheep or goats or something like that. And then that would be extra income. And basically what the concept is trying to promote is that by converting a small portion of your farmland to use for solar panels, you're not only you generate a stable source of income to help support your farm from the sale of the energy and the possible grazing rights that you might sell out. And then you don't also have to put pesticides down around the solar panels to keep the weeds down and things like that. So it was basically, how can you integrate everything together for the benefit of the farmer?
Comments?
That would work in the Brownsmead area.
Well, this is something that I liked about it, in that it does provide small farmers with a consistent and fairly substantial, according to the article, income. So that helps protect small farmers. So I like that. Again, I like the idea. I thought it was well thought out, using small sort of light animals, not like cattle, around the solar panels to keep the grass and weeds down. I guess I just kind of have an aesthetic objection to solar panels, and I would rather see solar panels on buildings. However, it does provide support for small farmers, And so I like that part of it. Those are just my thoughts.
I wonder if we could learn to love their ugliness. You know, like maybe get a local artist to paint clouds on them or something. You know, I know that I have a friend in Astoria who was given the freedom to paint barns in Louisiana, and it drove people nuts. But she got by with it, and there was a certain change of the aesthetics that you didn't expect a big red barn. You expected one that had been painted by a living artist.
Mhm.
Another advantage of these of solar farms where the farm operation itself might use quite a bit of the energy that's produced there, or might distribute it in a local, smaller neighborhood kind of distribution system, which is something that the solar people are really into, these kind of battery storage facilities, and then they supply, you know, maybe 50 people with their electrical energy or some number like that. The point I'm leading up to is we have this issue about being kind of isolated out here, and if we had one of our grand disasters, either a tsunami or a really severe earthquake or something like that, having these more independent systems is a real advantage. So solar is real good for that, I think, because it tends to be more distributed, and so it increases our resiliency. So it's an advantage.
Excellent point, Dawn. I like the increased resiliency. Other comments? Resiliency.
Okay, I had one other question, Mary. What about electric vehicles and charging stations and the hopefully potentially increased use of electric vehicles throughout the county?
Comments from anybody?
I understand that the Biden administration is looking into that nationally as a way of reducing pollution and promoting clean air. But I think that we should encourage that. That would be the positive way to go, is to get away from fossil fuel dependency, and I know the I guess some federal, I don't know if and probably state also agencies are going to complete electric fleets, and that is encouraging because it demonstrates to the general public that the serious thinking is going to electric modes of transportation. The technology is evolving. It kind of was put on the back burner there the last 4 years because of that administration's adverse thoughts to it. But I think now there's going to be more push for people to follow through. I know General Motors has got a target date to replace everything fossil fuel powered to electric. So
within about 35 years.
Another thing about electric vehicles goes back to the resiliency issue. One thing that's pointed out, and this would even have to do with short-term power outages. People with electric vehicles, if they have the right home system, can plug their electric vehicle back into their home electric supply and supply electricity to the house if the power's out. They actually have systems like that available. So yeah, you charge your car to drive it, but if you come home and your power's out because a tree came down over your power line, you can power up your home from your vehicle for a while. So it's another resiliency kind of idea.
Other comments? I agree. I think it's good to put in wording about electrical vehicles. For me, the jury is still out on really how much you gain because electricity has to be generated in some way. But I do think it's certainly something that we should address in the policies.
Do we
Any other-
do we dare add on vehicle power, you know, the great old German technology of burn stuff, you know, biomass. Basically, the technology was there just to put burnables in the system to run vehicles, and I'm talking about like in the 1940s. And Chris would know much more about this, and so would Diane. You know, but it was, you know, I'm not going back to the Stanley steamer, but I remember as a kid, you know, just seeing diagrams for putting this device on the back of your car to run your car with scraps, you know, wood waste, straw, whatever. And I certainly haven't dwelt on that for a while because I've been used to using or not driving my car. So alternative fuel for transportation. You know, not just electrical battery power, but biomass. I'd have a question mark. But it is not new technology.
Well, I think it's certainly interesting to bring up all of these different topics and explore different options. Any other comments? I did want to say one more thing about solar, and forgive me if I've missed this, but is there anywhere in the policy in terms of, I think that we did cover this under goal 13 and goal 5 in terms of what's encouraging new development to use energy conservation. But can we put in some wording about encouraging existing homeowners? Because I think I saw somewhere in our report that we have a large number of existing homes that are pretty old. Some way to put in wording that encourages updating structures to more energy efficient usage. And I did not word that very well, so feel free to put in your own words.
Okay, I'll think on that. So I don't know if everybody saw the chat from Randy, going back to the just previous discussion. Randy says it's called wood gasification, and it's been around for a long time and is a promising energy source, especially for areas with lots of biomass.
Wonderful. Can we add that somewhere here as a suggested possible energy source?
Okay, so that's added. And then, so for going back now to the retrofitting of existing homes, so do we want to say, I don't know if it's a program that the county would undertake necessarily, but it would be something that we could support other organizations who might do that. So support organizations and programs that assist homeowners to retrofit and upgrade to energy efficient. It's more than just appliances. What's the word I'm looking for? Technologies?
Yes.
Technologies and appliances.
For the domicile, for the entire domicile.
Right.
But it might not just be the domicile. I mean, if you have a shop or a farm, there may be opportunities there as well. So I wouldn't want to leave it just with the domicile.
The current requirement of high R value insulation and, using mostly LEDs, I think has been a phenomenally great benefit. I had lived for years in a windy structure in Cannon Beach, that was single pane and you could feel the wind blowing. And now I'm living in a recently built R39, and it's just phenomenally low furnace usage. You have some solar gain, and we'll have those 5 hot days where we wish it were cooler, but I think we've made such huge gains by being more efficient, better insulated, and not so wasteful with our lighting.
Great. Thank you, Gail. That looks really good. Any other comments? As I said earlier, we're a little bit all over the board here, but I think this has been very productive. Lots of great ideas, great discussions. Anything else?
Mary, I I have an update from a couple of meetings ago, or last meeting, concerning Chinook trails, Clatsop Chinook trails from Hammond to Neocoxie, Neowana.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, they obviously they did exist, and last night's Daily Historian kind of article kind of fired me up to say something about that, because the community of Gearhart is actually restoring or building up a trail that's north of Gearhart, or part of Gearhart and north. And that trail, according to what I got from our elders and culture committee, was a trail that connected the chain of lakes that were near or in the dunes that went north to Hammond. And most of those lakes near the in between Fort Stevens campground and Hammond, those lakes there now have been kind of developed with a lot of housing. But the lakes, like the one in Camp Ray Leah, there was a small like an outpost, village outpost there, a respite area for the Plains people to come over and meet the ones on the trail to do exchanges of provisions that were harvested. And then so it wasn't all a series of just I mean, there was a series of lakes that were connected with small portages of canoe that connected with overland that all went down to Neocoxy, which was at one time producing fish that went into that lake system that they call Sunset Lake. But
Thank you.
yeah, the trail, or the principal trail, utilized the beach area, specifically the beach area that travels south from that lake. I think it's called Slusher Lake in Camp Leah. It used the beach area until it got to the Sunset area, and then that lake system was water portage to Neocoxy, which had trails that took it all the way down to Neawana. So if there was a trail that if they wanted to do a single trail connecting Neocoxy, Neawana to Hammond or Fort Stevens North, that I would assume that it would be a trail that would include beach access and overland dune access, probably between the developments that are now on that area by Cullowhee Lake or west of Cullowhee Lake, and incorporating it to the outside or the dune areas that are near the beach access all the way down to Gearhart.
Thank you so much for that report, Dawn. I did bring that up earlier about, and I'm so glad that you were able to provide this report. And help me out here, Gail. Where were we talking about this? I don't have those notes in front of me.
Yeah, this would have been part of our discussion about, I think it came up under the Oregon recreational trails discussion, but it could be something that either gets addressed in goal 8, which is recreational needs, or it can be addressed as part of maybe scenic sites or wilderness and open spaces in goal 5, or even maybe a cross-reference in cultural resources.
Okay.
So there's a variety of places that we can put it. So do we have a particular policy that we want to use to address this? I don't think we drafted any language so far.
I agree with you, Gail. I don't think that we did. What I'd like to do is have the opportunity over this next month to look back and see where we talked about that and where we thought we were going to interject this information, but I don't know what this particular time. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely like to revisit it, because the article, last night's article, was a little bit disparaging. It didn't correctly identify Clatsop Chinook as the trail, and we are concerned that any signage that they put on that portion of the trail there that they're developing or remaking in Gearhart does not address the true cultural heritage of that trail and the importance of that trail to the Clatsop Chinook and tribes that utilized it for trade purposes and for sustainability in keeping the trails open for communications. And the fact that they've developed that or redeveloped that portion is a good starting point to connect or develop the trail as close to the original way, which would have to incorporate any of the remaining lakes that are in the dune areas between Neocoxy and Hammond.
Wonderful.
I'd like to, Mary, I'd like to interject the historic nature of Highway 101 in the between Camp Riley and Westlake, that it happens to be the same place that the wagon trails were, 120 years ago. It was, you know, and it's kind of, it just happens, you know, I throw this to Don also, that the reason the road was there, it was on top of the dune, and it was a natural place to have the road, and it's, you know, it had been defended from being turned into an 8-lane freeway, but it's a interesting historic route that surely was part of the Chinook transportation routes. You know, right where 101 is in that area, from Camp Riley's front door to down through Westlake to Delmore Loop.
Yep, that is true. Also, to note, there was a significant trail for the Waliuski people that lived on the east side of the Lewis and Clark that used a trail that traversed above the marsh area that is now Port of Astoria Airport, that came around and utilized your area where you live, your lakes, and the Cullowhee Lake portage that took them into the bog area in east of Gearhart, in that bog area to harvest berries there, and then that went all the way down to the village there. They call it the Pomrose site, where there was a big village there that's since been desecrated and destroyed by people hunting for artifacts. But that was a prominent trade route there, and it was used to help transport clammons from harvested elk and meat and from elk and that to the fishing sites there in the Pomrose area off the seaside. I was told that. Yeah, I was told that is a historical record from the Clatsop people that last lived there on the plains.
Well, thank you for that information. Moving back onto our agenda here, is there anything else to talk about on Goal 5, energy sources, and Goal 13, energy conservation? Hearing nothing else, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting a little bit early.
Mary, I
Yes,
just have
Dave.
a couple of items. A reminder, our next meeting date is March 11th. We expect that CREST will be done with their wetland updates and mapping at the end of March. And so sometime in April, we are hoping to schedule a workshop with CREST and go back and revisit Goal 5 wetlands. So just to be aware of that. Today's discussion did complete, except for wetlands, all of our resources in Goal 5. So we're going to start moving away from Goal 5 now, praise be. And next month, we're going to hit up Goal 6, which will include air and water quality. Then in next month is March. Then in April, we're going to skip Goal 7 for the time being and wait until the county adopts its updated natural hazard mitigation plan, so that we can pull those policies out of the adopted plan and put them into Goal 7. So from Goal 6 next month, April, we're going to hit Goal 8, which is recreational lands. And then in May, we'll be talking about Goal 9, which is economic development. And looking at our schedule, I think if we are focused, and I think this group in particular is very focused, we can get through all of our goals in November, because some of them, like we did today, will double up because they just work together naturally. And then probably if we can get through everything by the end of November, maybe take December off and then pick up in January, finishing out our review of the community plan.
Sounds
sounds-
good.
Sounds great. Okay,
What
everybody.
goal, excuse me, what goal are we looking at for March 11th?
That will be goal 6, which is air and water quality.
Okay.
Wonderful. Hearing no further comments, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. As usual, great input from everybody. I really appreciate your diversity of knowledge and your willingness to share that. So go forth, have fun, and stay safe. See you next month.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.